The year is 1347, and England breathes with a rhythm entirely different from our modern world. Time moves slowly here, measured not by the frantic ticking of clocks, but by the gentle progression of seasons, the rising and setting of the sun, and the tolling of church bells that echo across rolling green countryside dotted with small villages and winding dirt roads. In this era, life unfolds at nature's pace. Most people never travel more than a few miles from where they were born. The world feels vast and mysterious, filled with dense forests where ancient oaks stretch their gnarled branches toward gray skies, and where the morning mist clings to meadows like a soft, protective blanket. Medieval England is a tapestry woven from countless small communities, each centered around a manor house or a modest church built from local stone. The buildings are sturdy and practical, constructed to last generations rather than decades. Timber frames hold walls of wattle and daub, while thatched roofs provide shelter from the frequent rains that nourish this green and pleasant land. The social order of this time moves like a slow, steady river. Everyone knows their place in the great chain of being that stretches from the humblest serf working the fields to the king in his distant castle. This hierarchy provides structure and predictability to daily life, creating a sense of belonging and purpose that, while limiting by modern standards, offers a certain comforting stability. Agriculture dominates the rhythm of existence. The majority of people work the land, their lives intimately connected to the cycles of planting and harvest. Spring brings the renewal of hope as seeds are sown in freshly plowed earth. Summer means long days of tending crops under warm sunshine, while autumn arrives with the satisfaction of gathering the fruits of months of labor. Winter provides a time of rest and reflection when communities gather around hearth fires to share stories, mend tools, and prepare for the cycle to begin anew. The medieval diet consists primarily of bread, ale, pottage made from whatever grains and vegetables are available, and occasional meat when animals are slaughtered or when luck brings success in hunting. Herbs grown in small gardens behind cottages provide both flavor and medicine. Salt, precious and expensive, preserves meat through the long winter months. Honey serves as the primary sweetener, collected from wooden hives, tended with careful reverence for the industrious bees. Clothing reflects both practicality and social station. Common people wear garments made from wool spun and woven in their own homes, dyed with colors extracted from local plants. Brown, gray, and muted greens dominate the palette of everyday wear. The wealthy display their status through fine imported fabrics, vibrant dyes, and intricate embroidery that takes skilled needleworkers countless hours to complete. Transportation moves at the speed of human feet or horse hooves. Most journeys are undertaken on foot along well-worn paths that connect village to village. Merchants and nobles might travel on horseback, while the truly wealthy occasionally use carts or wagons, though these are suitable only for the most established roads. Rivers serve as highways for heavier goods, with barges and small boats carrying cargo between towns along waterways that have been used for trade since Roman times. Communication travels slowly but steadily through networks of human relationships. News passes from traveler to villager, from merchant to customer, from priest to parishioner. Important announcements are proclaimed in market squares, while personal messages are carried by trusted messengers who might take days or weeks to complete their journeys. The church provides the spiritual framework that gives meaning and structure to medieval life. Every village has its parish church, often the most substantial building in the community, built from local stone and topped with a bell tower that calls the faithful to prayer several times each day. These bells mark the rhythm of communal life, announcing dawn prayers, midday rest, and evening vespers. Within these churches, candlelight flickers against stone walls, painted with biblical scenes that tell stories to those who cannot read. The colored light filtering through small windows creates an atmosphere of mystery and reverence, while the scent of incense mingles with the earthy smell of stone and old wood. Education is limited, but treasured where it exists. Most learning takes place through apprenticeship and observation rather than formal schooling. Craftsmen pass their skills to young apprentices who live in their masters' households, learning not only techniques, but also the values and traditions of their trades. Knowledge is practical, focused on the skills needed for daily survival and community contribution. Trade and commerce center around weekly market days when villagers gather in town squares to exchange goods, news, and gossip. These markets create a festive atmosphere as farmers bring produce, craftsmen display their wares, and traveling merchants offer exotic goods from distant lands. The air fills with the sounds of bargaining voices, the lowing of cattle, and the creaking of wooden cartwheels on cobblestone. In this world, evening entertainment consists of storytelling around hearth, fires, simple music played on wooden instruments, and occasional festivals that mark religious holidays or seasonal celebrations. Communities gather for harvest festivals, Easter celebrations, and Christmas observances that stretch across multiple days of feasting, dancing, and shared joy. The landscape itself tells stories of human habitation stretching back centuries. Ancient stone circles stand in remote fields, remnants of peoples whose names are forgotten, but whose presence still whispers across the land. Roman roads, still solid and straight after hundreds of years, provide evidence of earlier civilizations. Norman castles, built after the conquest of 1066, dot the countryside as reminders of more recent upheavals. As twilight approaches on any given day in this medieval world, smoke rises from countless chimneys as families gather for evening meals. The day's work winds down slowly, without the abrupt transitions of modern life. Farmers return from fields, craftsmen put away their tools, and children are called in from their play. The pace of evening reflects the natural rhythm of fading daylight as people prepare for rest without the artificial urgency that electric lighting would later bring to human schedules. Our path leads through the English countryside on a mild autumn afternoon in 1347. The air carries the crisp scent of falling leaves mixed with wood smoke from distant chimneys. Golden sunlight filters through the canopy of oak and elm trees that line the narrow earthen road, creating patterns of light and shadow that shift gently with each breath of wind. The road beneath our feet is well worn, but not paved, packed earth that has been traveled by countless pilgrims, merchants, and local villagers over many generations. Occasional stones have been placed to help with drainage during heavy rains, and wooden planks bridge small streams that cross our path with quiet murmuring sounds. As we walk, the countryside reveals itself in layers of gentle beauty. Fields stretch away on either side, some recently harvested and showing the golden stubble of cut grain, others still bearing late crops that await the final gathering. Hedgerows separate properties, thick tangles of hawthorn, blackberry, and a wild rose that provide homes for countless small birds whose songs create a peaceful soundtrack for our journey. Sheep graze in distant meadows, their white forms scattered across green pastures like clouds reflected on earth. A shepherd tends them with the help of a loyal dog, both figures moving slowly and purposefully across the landscape. The shepherd carries a long wooden staff and wears a simple brown cloak that blends with the autumn colors surrounding him. The village appears gradually, first as a thin column of smoke rising above the trees, then as the sound of voices and the lowing of cattle carried on the wind. A church bell tolls the hour with deep, resonant notes that seem to gather the scattered sounds of human activity and weave them into a harmonious announcement of community life. Our first view of the settlement comes as we crest a small hill. Below us spreads a collection of modest buildings arranged around a central green space. The church stands prominently at one end, its stone tower rising above thatched roofs, like a gentle guardian watching over the community. Smoke rises from many chimneys, creating thin gray ribbons against the pale blue sky. The houses appear comfortable and well maintained, though simple in their construction. Most are single-story buildings with steep thatched roofs that come down low over walls made of local stone or timber frames filled with wattle and daub. Small gardens beside each house show evidence of careful tending, with late vegetables, herb patches, and perhaps a fruit tree or two. As we descend the hill toward the village, more details become visible. Chickens scratch in the dirt near several houses, while a pig snorts contentedly in a small pen behind one cottage. Children's voices can be heard, though the children themselves remain hidden, perhaps playing games in the spaces between buildings or helping with household tasks. The main road widens as it enters the village, becoming a rough cobblestone street that has been laid with care to provide better footing for horses and cartwheels. On either side, buildings present their faces to the street with an air of dignified simplicity. Most have small windows with wooden shutters and sturdy doors made from local oak. A few villagers move about their daily business with the unhurried pace typical of rural life. An elderly woman carries a wooden bucket toward the well that stands in the center of the village green. A man leads a horse, pulling a cart loaded with hay, the wheels creaking rhythmically as they turn. Two women pause in their conversation to nod politely as we pass, their faces showing the calm curiosity of people accustomed to occasionally seeing travelers. The air in the village carries a mixture of scents that speaks of community life, bread baking in someone's oven, the earthy smell of animals and hay, wood smoke from various hearths, and the green scent of herbs drying in bundles hung outside cottage doors. These aromas blend into a rich tapestry that somehow manages to be both complex and soothing. Near the center of the village, we notice a building slightly larger than the others, with a wooden sign hanging beside its door. The sign bears a painted image of a golden sheaf of wheat, and even from a distance, we can hear the sounds of conversation and occasional laughter drifting from within. This is clearly the village tavern, the social heart of the community where neighbors gather to share news, conduct business, and enjoy each other's company. The tavern's windows glow with warm light, and through the partially open door, we catch glimpses of people seated around wooden tables. The building appears to have been constructed with extra care, its timber frame robust and well maintained, its thatched roof thick and weatherproof. A small stable attached to one side provides shelter for the horses of visitors who have traveled from other villages or towns. Beside the tavern stands the village bakehouse, where a baker tends his ovens with practiced efficiency. The scent of fresh bread mingles with the other village aromas, and we can see loaves cooling on wooden shelves through the open doorway. The baker, his face flushed from the heat of his ovens, works with the steady rhythm of someone who has spent years perfecting his craft. A blacksmith's forge occupies another corner of the village center, though at this hour of the afternoon, the smith appears to be taking a well-deserved rest. His tools hang neatly on the walls of his workshop, and a few horseshoes wait on his workbench for tomorrow's customers. The forge itself glows with banked coals that will keep the fire ready for the next day's work. The church dominates the far end of the village with its weathered stone walls and arched doorway. Its bell tower rises square and solid against the sky, and the graveyard surrounding it is dotted with simple stone markers that tell the quiet stories of generations who have lived and died in this peaceful place. Ancient yew trees shade the graves, their dark green branches creating a sense of timeless continuity. As we approach the tavern, the sounds from within become clearer. Voices blend in comfortable conversation, punctuated by the occasional laugh or the clink of wooden cups being set down on tables. Someone is telling a story, his voice rising and falling with practiced dramatic timing, while his listeners murmur appreciative responses at appropriate moments. The tavern door stands partially open, revealing glimpses of a warm, inviting interior. Lit by candles and oil lamps, the flickering light creates dancing shadows on wooden walls, and we can see people seated at various tables, some dining on simple meals, others nursing cups of ale while engaged in quiet conversation. A wooden bench sits beside the tavern door, where an old man rests with a walking stick across his knees. His weathered face shows the deep lines of someone who has spent decades working outdoors, and his eyes hold the patient wisdom that comes from observing human nature over many years. He nods pleasantly as we approach, his expression suggesting that while he notes our arrival, he feels no urgency to question our business or destination. The late afternoon light slants across the village scene, casting long shadows that stretch toward the east and giving everything a golden glow that speaks of peaceful endings to productive days. This is a place where time moves gently, where the rhythms of life follow patterns established over centuries, and where the simple pleasures of community, good food, and warm shelter provide the foundation for human contentment. The heavy oak door of the tavern yields to our gentle push, opening with a soft creak that speaks of well oiled hinges and countless openings over many years. As we step across the worn stone threshold, we are immediately enveloped by warmth that seems to embrace us like a welcoming friend. The contrast between the cool autumn air outside and the cozy interior creates a moment of pure physical comfort that settles into our bones. The first sensation that greets us is the sight of golden light dancing across wooden surfaces. Oil lamps mounted on the walls cast their steady glow upward, while candles placed on tables create intimate pools of illumination that flicker gently with each slight movement of air. The light seems alive, breathing with the subtle variations that only flame can provide, creating an atmosphere of warmth and mystery that electric bulbs could never replicate. The tavern's interior reveals itself gradually as our eyes adjust to the softer light. The main room stretches before us, larger than it appeared from outside, with a low ceiling supported by massive oak beams that have been darkened by decades of wood smoke and age. These beams give the space a sense of strength and permanence, as if the building has grown naturally from the earth rather than being constructed by human hands. The walls are made of local stone, fitted together with the patient skill of medieval masons who understood that their work would need to endure for generations. Between the stones, lime mortar has been carefully pointed and repointed over the years, creating surfaces that are both functional and pleasing to the eye. Here and there, wooden panels have been added to provide additional warmth and to create alcoves where small groups can gather for private conversation. At the far end of the room, a large stone fireplace dominates the wall, its hearth deep enough to accommodate substantial logs that burn with steady, comforting flames. The fire has been built with care, arranged so that it will burn slowly and evenly throughout the evening, providing consistent warmth without requiring constant attention. Above the fireplace, a wooden mantelpiece holds a few simple objects: pewter candlesticks, a wooden bowl, and some dried herbs hanging in bundles. The floor beneath our feet consists of wide wooden planks, smoothed by countless footsteps and regularly scrubbed clean. Rush mats have been scattered in various places to provide additional warmth and comfort, and these mats release a faint, pleasant scent of dried grass and herbs when stepped upon. The overall effect creates a surface that is both practical and welcoming, designed for durability while maintaining comfort. Tables of various sizes occupy the main space, each crafted from solid oak that has been polished smooth by years of use. The largest table sits near the fireplace, clearly the gathering place for the tavern's most sociable patrons, while smaller tables around the room provide opportunities for more intimate conversations. Each table shows evidence of careful maintenance, with surfaces kept clean and free from the deep scratches and stains that might accumulate in a less well-managed establishment. Wooden benches and simple chairs surround the tables, offering seating that appears both sturdy and comfortable. The chairs are of varying heights and styles, suggesting that they have been acquired over time rather than purchased as matching sets. Some show evidence of repairs and modifications, testament to the medieval practice of maintaining and improving possessions rather than replacing them when they showed signs of wear. The tavern keeper appears from behind a wooden counter that runs along one wall, his face creased in a welcoming smile that immediately puts visitors at ease. He is a man of middle years, with the robust build typical of someone who works with his hands and maintains an active lifestyle. His clothing is simple but clean, consisting of a brown woolen tunic over linen undergarments, with a leather apron that shows evidence of his trade. His manner suggests competence and friendliness, without the excessive familiarity that might make customers uncomfortable. Behind the counter, wooden shelves hold an array of cups, bowls, and serving vessels, all crafted from local materials with the practical beauty that characterizes medieval craftsmanship. Pewter tankards catch the light with dull silver gleams, while wooden cups and bowls show the smooth patina that comes from regular use and careful maintenance. Clay jugs of various sizes suggest the availability of different beverages, while baskets hold bread, cheese, and other simple foods that form the tavern's standard offerings. The other patrons of the establishment create a gentle background of human presence without overwhelming the atmosphere with noise or activity. At the large table near the fireplace, four men engage in quiet conversation over their cups of ale, their voices creating a low murmur that blends harmoniously with the crackling of the fire. Their clothing identifies them as local craftsmen or farmers, people who have finished their day's work and now enjoy the simple pleasure of community fellowship. In one corner, two women share a meal and conversation, their voices occasionally rising in gentle laughter that adds to the tavern's welcoming atmosphere. They appear to be friends who meet regularly, comfortable in each other's company, and content to take their time over their food and drink. Their presence adds to the sense that this is a place where all members of the community are welcome. An elderly man sits alone at a small table near one of the windows, though his solitude appears to be by choice rather than isolation. He nurses a cup of ale while gazing thoughtfully into the fire, occasionally nodding to other patrons or exchanging brief pleasantries. His presence adds to the feeling that the tavern serves as a second home for many villagers, a place where individuals can find both company and solitude as their moods require. The scents within the tavern create their own welcoming symphony. The dominant aroma comes from the wood fire, a clean, comforting smell that speaks of warmth and security. Beneath this, the yeasty scent of fresh ale mingles with the savory aromas of simple foods, bread baking in the tavern's own small oven, a pot of stew simmering slowly over the coals, herbs and onions adding their fragrances to the evening air. Sounds within the tavern blend into a peaceful backdrop that enhances rather than disturbs conversation. The fire provides a steady, gentle crackling as logs settle and flames dance around the wood. Voices rise and fall in natural rhythms, creating a human music that speaks of contentment and community. Occasionally, a wooden cup touches a table with a soft sound, or someone shifts position on a bench with a quiet creak of old wood adjusting to new weight. The overall atmosphere suggests a place where time moves slowly and naturally, where the pressures and urgencies of daily life dissolve into the simple pleasure of warmth, nourishment, and human fellowship. This is clearly a establishment that has served its community well for many years, providing not just food and drink, but also the essential human need for gathering places where neighbors can come together at the end of their working days. As we settle into this welcoming environment, the tavern keeper approaches with the unhurried courtesy typical of medieval hospitality, ready to provide whatever refreshment we might desire while respecting our need to adjust to the peaceful rhythm of tavern life. The tavern keeper approaches our table with the measured steps of someone who has learned to move efficiently without appearing hurried. His face carries the expression of genuine hospitality that comes naturally to those who have spent years serving their community. His hands, clean but bearing the honest calluses of physical work, gesture toward the available seating with practiced grace. "Welcome, travelers," he says, in a voice that carries the warm cadence of the local dialect. "The evening is young, and we have fresh ale drawn from this morning's brewing, along with bread that came from the oven not 2 hours past. Would you care to rest yourselves by our fire?" His manner is neither obsequious nor overly familiar, but rather reflects the genuine courtesy that characterizes medieval hospitality at its best. We choose seats at a table positioned to take advantage of the fireplace's warmth while allowing us to observe the gentle activity throughout the room. The wooden chair creaks slightly as we settle into it, the sound somehow reassuring in its solidity. The table's surface, worn smooth by countless meals and conversations, feels warm to the touch, having absorbed heat from the nearby fire and the oil lamp that provides our immediate circle of light. The ale arrives in sturdy pewter tankards that show their age through small dents and scratches that speak of years of faithful service. The brew itself appears golden brown in the lamplight, with a modest head of foam that suggests proper brewing and careful handling. The first taste reveals the complex flavors that come from barley malted with patience and skill, hops grown in local gardens, and water drawn from the village well that has served the community for generations. This ale bears little resemblance to the mass-produced beverages of later centuries. Instead, it carries the unique character that comes from small batch brewing, where each batch reflects the subtle variations in ingredients, weather, and the brewer's individual skills. The alcohol content provides gentle warmth without overwhelming strength, making it suitable for extended social drinking that can continue throughout the evening without compromising anyone's judgment or behavior. Accompanying the ale comes a wooden trencher holding fresh bread, cheese, and sliced apples that still show the blush of autumn orchards. The bread has a dense, satisfying texture that speaks of flour ground from local grain and baked in the tavern's own oven. Its crust yields to reveal a crumb that is both substantial and flavorful, designed to provide nourishment rather than mere pleasure, though it accomplishes both purposes admirably. The cheese, aged in the tavern's cool cellar, has developed the complex flavors that come from months of careful tending. Made from milk provided by cows that graze in nearby pastures, it represents the fruits of collaboration between the tavern keeper and local farmers who supply ingredients in exchange for finished goods and services. Each bite carries the taste of the local terroir, the specific combination of soil, climate, and traditional techniques that make each region's products unique. As we enjoy these simple but satisfying refreshments, the life of the tavern continues around us with the gentle rhythm that characterizes medieval social gatherings. Conversations flow at a pace that allows for thoughtful consideration of topics without the rapid fire exchange that would characterize later, more hurried eras. People take time to listen as well as speak, creating dialogue rather than mere serial monologue. At the large table near the fireplace, the four craftsmen have been joined by the village miller, a man whose clothes still show traces of flour despite his evident efforts to brush them clean before entering the tavern. His arrival prompts a discussion of the recent harvest and the quality of this year's grain, a topic that interests everyone present since bread forms the foundation of medieval diet. The miller speaks with the authority of someone whose profession gives him intimate knowledge of agriculture throughout the region. He describes the qualities of wheat from different fields, explains how variations in weather have affected yields, and predicts what the winter's bread supply will be like based on his assessment of the grain he has processed. His knowledge encompasses not just technical aspects of milling, but also the economic implications for families throughout the area. One of the farmers at the table responds with his own observations about soil conditions, rainfall patterns, and the behavior of crops throughout the growing season. His comments reveal the deep understanding that comes from decades of working the same land, learning its moods and characteristics through direct experience rather than theoretical study. The other men listen with respectful attention, understanding that agricultural success affects everyone in the community. Their conversation gradually expands to include other topics of local interest: the condition of roads between villages, news brought by recent travelers, the progress of construction on a new barn for one of the local manors, and plans for the approaching winter season. Each topic is explored without haste, allowing participants to share their knowledge and opinions while maintaining the relaxed atmosphere that makes tavern conversations so enjoyable. The two women in the corner have been joined by a third friend, creating a small circle of feminine conversation that provides a counterpoint to the predominantly male gathering around the fireplace. Their voices, lighter in timbre, but no less engaged in serious discussion, address topics of particular concern to women in their community: the health and progress of children, the success of household gardens, preservation techniques for winter, food supplies, and the intricate web of family relationships that connects every household in the village. Their conversation reveals the sophisticated understanding that medieval women possessed regarding domestic economy, herbal medicine, child rearing, and social dynamics. These are not frivolous topics, but rather essential areas of knowledge that require intelligence, experience, and careful judgment. The women's expertise in these areas represents a form of professional competence that is every bit as valuable as the skills possessed by male craftsmen and farmers. The elderly man by the window has been quietly listening to both conversations while gazing into the fire. Occasionally, he offers a brief comment or observation that demonstrates his wealth of experience and the wisdom that comes from having lived through many cycles of seasons, harvests, and community changes. His contributions are respected by everyone present, reflecting the medieval reverence for age and accumulated knowledge. The tavern keeper moves among his customers with practiced efficiency, refilling tankards, removing empty trenchers, and maintaining the fire that provides warmth and light for the gathering. His movements are economical but never hurried, reflecting the understanding that good service enhances rather than intrudes upon social interaction. He clearly takes pride in maintaining an establishment that serves as a true center of community life. As the evening progresses, the atmosphere becomes increasingly relaxed and convivial. The combination of good ale, simple food, warmth from the fire, and pleasant company creates conditions that naturally encourage the kind of social bonding that strengthens community ties. This is not entertainment in the modern sense, but rather the essential human activity of sharing experiences, knowledge, and fellowship that makes individual lives richer and community life stronger. The lighting in the tavern has adjusted to the deepening evening outside. Oil lamps and candles provide all the illumination needed for conversation and dining, creating pools of golden light that seem to draw people together while leaving the corners of the room in gentle shadow. This lighting encourages intimacy and reflection while maintaining the communal atmosphere that makes tavern life so appealing. Outside, the sounds of village life have gradually quieted as families complete their evening routines and prepare for rest. The tavern increasingly becomes the center of social activity, the place where those who wish to extend their day through conversation and companionship can find others of like mind. This transition from public to semi private space occurs naturally, without announcement or ceremony, as part of the daily rhythm that governs medieval life. As the evening settles more deeply around the tavern, the quality of conversation shifts from the practical concerns of daily life toward the more reflective topics that emerge when people have time to contemplate the broader patterns of existence. The fire has been rebuilt with fresh logs, and the crackling flames create an even more intimate atmosphere that encourages deeper sharing among the gathered villagers. A traveling merchant arrives, bringing with him the exotic scent of distant places and the promise of news from beyond the village boundaries. He is a man of perhaps 40 years, his clothing practical but of better quality than that worn by local residents, suggesting prosperity without ostentation. His boots show the wear of many miles, and his eyes hold the alert expression of someone accustomed to observing human nature in many different settings. The tavern keeper greets the newcomer with the special courtesy reserved for visitors who bring news and trade opportunities to isolated communities. A place is made for him at the large table near the fireplace, and fresh ale is provided along with the best food the tavern can offer. The merchant accepts this hospitality with gracious appreciation, understanding his role in the social contract that governs relationships between travelers and local communities. After satisfying his immediate needs for food and drink, the merchant begins to share news from his journeys. He speaks of market conditions in larger towns, describing the prices being paid for various goods and the availability of items that cannot be produced locally. His information is valuable to everyone present since it affects decisions about what crops to plant, which crafts to pursue, and how to allocate household resources for maximum benefit. The merchant's tales extend beyond mere commercial intelligence to include descriptions of life in other places. He tells of innovations he has observed, new techniques for preserving food, improved methods of construction, and interesting variations in local customs that differ from those practiced in this village. His stories provide windows into a larger world while helping the villagers appreciate the unique qualities of their own community. One particularly fascinating account describes a monastery he visited where the monks have developed an improved method of copying manuscripts. The merchant explains how these religious scholars have created better inks that resist fading, developed techniques for preparing parchment that lasts longer, and established systems for organizing their work that allow them to produce more books in less time. This information interests everyone present, since books represent both valuable trade goods and repositories of essential knowledge. The conversation gradually turns to broader philosophical questions about the nature of knowledge and learning. The village priest, who has been quietly listening from a corner table, joins the discussion with observations about the relationship between practical skills and theoretical understanding. His perspective, informed by theological training and years of pastoral experience, adds depth to the conversation without making it overly academic or abstract. The priest speaks about the importance of different types of knowledge, explaining how practical skills, like farming and craftsmanship, represent one form of understanding, while book learning provides another. He suggests that both types of knowledge are necessary for a complete life, and that communities benefit when people with different kinds of expertise share their insights with one another. This leads to a discussion of memory and oral tradition, topics that hold special significance in a largely illiterate society. The elderly man by the window contributes his perspective on how knowledge was preserved and transmitted in earlier generations. Before books became more common, he describes the sophisticated memory techniques used by people who could not write, explaining how stories, songs, and traditional practices served to preserve essential information across generations. One of the farmers at the table tells a story that has been passed down in his family for over a century, describing how his great grandfather dealt with a particularly severe winter that threatened the survival of livestock and human beings alike. The story contains practical information about emergency food preparation, shelter construction, and community cooperation, but it is presented in narrative form that makes it both memorable and entertaining. The women's conversation has also deepened, moving from immediate practical concerns to broader questions about family relationships, child rearing, and the transmission of domestic wisdom from mother to daughter. They discuss the challenges of teaching skills that require years to master, exploring how different personalities and learning styles require different approaches to education. One of the women describes her efforts to teach her teenage daughter the complex art of brewing ale, a skill that involves not only technical knowledge, but also the ability to judge quality through sensory evaluation and to adjust techniques based on changing conditions. Her account reveals the sophisticated understanding required for tasks that might appear simple to outside observers. Another woman shares her experiences with herbal medicine, describing how she learned to identify, gather, prepare, and administer plant remedies for common ailments. Her knowledge encompasses not only which plants to use for specific conditions, but also when to gather them for maximum potency, how to prepare them properly, and how to combine different herbs for enhanced effectiveness. This expertise represents a form of professional competence that requires years of study and practice. The conversation around the women's table gradually includes discussion of storytelling and its role in family life. They explore how different types of stories serve different purposes. Some preserve historical information, others teach moral lessons, and still others provide entertainment that helps families bond during long winter evenings. Each woman contributes examples from her own experience, creating a rich tapestry of narrative traditions. As these various conversations continue, the merchant introduces stories from his travels that illustrate how different communities have developed unique solutions to common problems. He describes a village where residents have created an innovative system for sharing draft animals during plowing season, allowing small farmers to accomplish work that would otherwise require resources beyond their individual means. Another story tells of a town where craftsmen have organized themselves into guilds that provide training for young people, maintain quality standards for products, and offer mutual support during difficult times. This system creates benefits for both individual craftsmen and the community as a whole, ensuring that skills are preserved and improved across generations while providing economic security for practitioners. The priest contributes his own stories of communities he has visited, focusing on examples of successful cooperation and mutual aid. He describes parishes where members have worked together to build churches, support widows and orphans, and provide education for children. His examples emphasize the spiritual as well as practical benefits that flow from community solidarity and shared commitment to common welfare. These conversations create an atmosphere of gentle, intellectual stimulation that contrasts sharply with the rapid fire information exchange that characterizes later historical periods. Medieval conversation moves at a pace that allows for reflection and contemplation, encouraging participants to explore ideas thoroughly rather than rushing to premature conclusions. The quality of listening in these conversations is particularly noteworthy. People attend carefully to what others are saying, asking clarifying questions when necessary, and building upon previous contributions rather than simply waiting for their turn to speak. This creates a genuinely collaborative exploration of topics rather than a series of individual performances. As the evening progresses, the conversations gradually become more personal and introspective. People begin to share stories from their own lives, describing challenges they have faced, lessons they have learned, and hopes they hold for the future. These personal revelations are received with respectful attention and thoughtful responses that demonstrate the deep sense of community that characterizes medieval village life. The fire continues to provide warmth and light, its flames creating an ever-changing display of colors and shadows that seems to encourage contemplation and reflection. The combination of physical comfort, good fellowship, and engaging conversation creates conditions that naturally promote the kind of deep satisfaction that comes from meaningful human connection. The tavern has now fully transformed into an intimate gathering place where the boundaries between acquaintances soften into something approaching genuine friendship. The merchant's presence has catalyzed deeper conversations, but it is the natural human tendency toward connection that sustains the increasingly meaningful exchanges taking place around various tables. The fire has settled into a steady, comfortable blaze that requires little attention, allowing the tavern keeper to join more fully in the conversations rather than constantly tending to practical matters. His contributions reveal the wisdom that comes from years of observing human nature and facilitating social interaction. As someone who serves as a neutral party in community disputes and provides a gathering place for people of different backgrounds and opinions, he has developed insights into human behavior that prove valuable in guiding discussions toward constructive outcomes. The merchant begins to share more personal stories from his travels, moving beyond commercial information toward descriptions of the human experiences that make his journeys memorable. He tells of a monastery where he was welcomed during a severe storm, describing not just the physical shelter provided, but also the spiritual hospitality that made his stay meaningful. The monks, he explains, practiced a form of silence that somehow enhanced rather than inhibited communication, creating space for reflection and contemplation that busy travelers rarely experience. This account sparks interest from the priest, who explains different approaches to contemplative practice that he has encountered in his pastoral work. He describes how some people find spiritual insight through active engagement with their communities, while others discover deeper truths through periods of solitude and reflection. His observations suggest that both approaches have value and that individuals must find the methods that best suit their temperaments and circumstances. The elderly man by the window offers his perspective on the relationship between solitude and community, drawing upon decades of experience that have taught him when to engage with others and when to seek quiet reflection. He speaks of the rhythm that governs human social needs, explaining how periods of intense community involvement naturally alternate with times when individuals require privacy to process their experiences and renew their emotional resources. This leads to a broader discussion of the cycles that govern human life, from the daily alternation between work and rest to the seasonal patterns that shape agricultural communities. The farmers at the table contribute their observations about how these natural rhythms affect not just crop production, but also human mood and behavior. They describe how the energy of spring planting differs from the contemplative quality of winter planning, and how successful farmers learn to align their activities with these natural fluctuations. The women's conversation has evolved into an exploration of the different types of wisdom that guide human behavior. They discuss the practical knowledge required for managing households, the emotional intelligence needed for maintaining family relationships, and the intuitive understanding that helps mothers care for their children. Their exchanges reveal the sophisticated thinking that underlies activities often dismissed as merely domestic in later historical periods. One woman shares her approach to teaching her children about moral behavior, describing how she uses stories, examples, and carefully structured experiences to help them develop good judgment and ethical awareness. Her methods demonstrate the psychological sophistication that medieval people brought to child rearing, combining practical instruction with character development in ways that modern educational theorists would recognize as sound pedagogical practice. Another woman contributes her observations about the seasonal cycles that affect family life, explaining how different times of year require different approaches to household management and child supervision. Her insights reveal the complex planning and adaptation required to maintain family welfare throughout the changing conditions that characterize agricultural communities. The conversation gradually turns toward stories of previous generations as older participants share memories of parents and grandparents whose experiences provide perspective on current challenges. These family histories reveal patterns of adaptation and survival that have enabled communities to endure through various difficulties, from harsh weather to economic disruption to social upheaval. The miller tells the story of his grandfather who survived a particularly severe famine by developing innovative techniques for extracting nutrition from materials that others considered inedible. His account includes practical information about emergency food preparation, but it is presented as a tribute to human ingenuity and determination rather than merely technical instruction. The merchant responds with his own family history, describing ancestors who built a trading business through careful attention to quality, fair dealing, and long term relationship building rather than seeking quick profits through questionable practices. His story illustrates the medieval understanding that business success depends ultimately on reputation and community trust rather than mere cleverness or aggressive competition. These family stories create a sense of continuity that connects present challenges with past solutions, helping participants understand their current situations as part of longer patterns of human experience. The storytelling also serves to honor previous generations while extracting practical wisdom that can guide current decision making. As the evening deepens, the conversations become increasingly philosophical, touching on fundamental questions about the purpose of human life and the nature of happiness. The priest contributes theological perspectives on these topics, but his comments are balanced by secular observations from other participants who approach the same questions from different angles. The farmer, who earlier shared agricultural insights, now offers his thoughts on the satisfaction that comes from work that directly contributes to community welfare. He describes the sense of meaning he finds in producing food that nourishes his neighbors, explaining how this connection between personal effort and community benefit provides a form of fulfillment that purely individual achievements cannot match. The tavern keeper adds his perspective on the role of hospitality in creating human happiness, describing how the act of welcoming others and providing for their comfort generates satisfaction for both host and guest. His observations suggest that the medieval understanding of happiness emphasized relational and communal elements rather than the individual pleasure seeking that would characterize later periods. The women contribute their insights about the happiness that comes from nurturing relationships and creating environments where others can flourish. They discuss the complex satisfactions involved in child rearing, family care, and community building, activities that require sacrifice of immediate personal gratification in service of longer term and broader benefits. These philosophical discussions are conducted without the academic abstraction that might characterize similar conversations in university settings. Instead, they remain grounded in concrete experience and practical application, reflecting the medieval integration of thought and action that prevented ideas from becoming divorced from lived reality. The merchant introduces the perspective of someone who has observed many different approaches to organizing human communities, describing variations in social arrangements, economic systems, and cultural practices that he has encountered in his travels. His observations help participants understand that their own way of life represents one among many possible approaches to human organization, while also highlighting the particular strengths of their own community. As these conversations continue, the participants naturally begin to reflect on their own lives and choices, considering how the wisdom they have shared might apply to their personal situations. This turn toward self examination is facilitated by the comfortable atmosphere and the trust that has developed among the group, creating conditions where people feel safe to acknowledge uncertainties and explore possibilities for growth or change. The fire continues to provide its steady warmth and gentle illumination, while outside the tavern, the village settles into the deep quiet of a medieval evening. The contrast between the intimate fellowship within the tavern and the peaceful solitude of the night beyond creates a sense of sanctuary that enhances the value of the human connections being forged and strengthened through conversation. The ele continues to flow at a measured pace that maintains conviviality without compromising anyone's judgment or dignity. The tavern keeper's skill in managing alcohol service reflects the medieval understanding that drink should enhance rather than replace meaningful social interaction, providing lubrication for conversation without becoming an end in itself. As the discussions deepen, participants begin to share more personal revelations about their hopes, fears, and aspirations. These intimate disclosures are received with respectful attention and thoughtful responses that demonstrate the genuine care that community members feel for one another's welfare and development. The atmosphere in the tavern has reached that perfect balance of intimacy and openness that occurs when people have moved beyond polite conversation into genuine sharing. The flickering firelight seems to encourage reflection, casting dancing shadows that create an almost mystical ambiance where ordinary concerns give way to deeper contemplation of life's mysteries and meanings. The priest, who has been a thoughtful contributor throughout the evening, now takes a more central role in guiding the conversation towards spiritual matters. However, his approach is neither preachy nor dogmatic, but rather reflects the pastoral wisdom that recognizes how sacred truths emerge naturally from human experience when people create space for reflection and mutual understanding. He begins by sharing a story about a pilgrimage he once made to a distant shrine, but rather than focusing on the religious significance of the destination, he describes the inner journey that occurred during the long days of walking through countryside, much like their own. His account emphasizes how the rhythm of foot travel, the changing landscapes, and the simple routines of eating and sleeping gradually stripped away the mental clutter that normally prevents deep reflection. The merchant responds with his own spiritual insights gained through travel, describing moments of transcendent beauty encountered in remote places where human settlements give way to wild nature. He tells of sunrise views from mountain passes, of ancient forests where shafts of sunlight create natural cathedrals, and of star filled skies in places far from any artificial light. His descriptions reveal how encounters with natural grandeur can evoke profound spiritual responses that connect travelers with truths larger than their individual concerns. The elderly man by the window contributes memories of spiritual experiences rooted in community rather than solitude, describing festivals and celebrations that brought the entire village together in expressions of shared joy and reverence. His stories reveal how communal rituals can create collective experiences of the sacred that strengthen both individual faith and community bonds. These spiritual narratives prompt broader reflection on the relationship between the sacred and the everyday, a topic that holds particular significance in medieval culture, where religious and secular life are deeply integrated rather than separated into distinct spheres. The participants explore how ordinary activities like farming, craftsmanship, and family care can become forms of spiritual practice when approached with proper intention and awareness. The farmer, who has been sharing agricultural wisdom throughout the evening, now describes his work in spiritual terms, explaining how tending the soil and nurturing crops connects him with the creative forces that sustain all life. His account reveals the theological sophistication that characterizes medieval agricultural communities, where farming is understood as collaboration with divine providence rather than mere manipulation of natural resources. One of the women contributes her perspective on the sacred dimensions of domestic life, describing how activities like cooking, cleaning, and childcare become forms of prayer when performed with mindful attention to their deeper significance. Her insights reflect the medieval understanding that all honest work, when performed with proper intention, participates in the divine order that governs creation. The blacksmith, who has been quietly listening for much of the evening, now shares his understanding of how craftsmanship can become a spiritual discipline. He describes the meditative quality of working with fire and metal, explaining how the physical demands of his trade require the kind of focused attention that naturally leads to contemplative awareness. His observations reveal how manual labor, far from being merely mechanical, can provide opportunities for spiritual development when approached with proper understanding. These explorations of work as spiritual practice lead to broader discussions of how medieval people understand the relationship between material and spiritual dimensions of existence. Unlike later periods that would sharply separate sacred and secular realms, medieval culture assumes that all aspects of life participate in a unified cosmic order where divine presence can be encountered through engagement with created reality. The tavern keeper contributes his own insights about hospitality as spiritual practice, describing how the act of welcoming strangers and providing for their needs reflects divine hospitality that welcomes all human beings into existence. His perspective reveals the theological depth that underlies medieval social customs, where seemingly simple acts of courtesy and care express profound truths about human dignity and divine love. The conversation gradually turns toward stories of saints and holy people, but these accounts focus on examples of ordinary individuals who achieved extraordinary spiritual insight through faithful attention to their daily responsibilities rather than through dramatic renunciation of worldly concerns. These stories provide inspiration while remaining grounded in realistic possibilities for spiritual development within normal community life. The merchant tells of a monastery he visited where the monks supported themselves through brewing ale, describing how they had transformed this practical necessity into a form of contemplative practice. Their approach to brewing involved the same careful attention to quality and process that characterizes monastic prayer, creating products that served both practical and spiritual purposes for their community. The priest responds with accounts of lay people in his pastoral experience who have achieved remarkable spiritual maturity through devoted attention to family responsibilities, community service, and honest work. His stories demonstrate that holiness is not limited to religious professionals, but can flourish wherever people commit themselves to living with integrity, compassion, and awareness of their connection to the larger purposes that govern human existence. These spiritual discussions naturally lead to considerations of mortality and the meaning of human life in the face of inevitable death. However, rather than becoming morbid or depressing, these reflections take on a quality of peaceful acceptance that reflects medieval familiarity with death as a natural part of existence rather than an enemy to be defeated or denied. The elderly man shares his perspective on aging and preparation for death, describing how advancing years have brought not fear, but rather increased appreciation for the simple pleasures of community, nature, and meaningful work. His attitude reflects the medieval understanding that a good death represents the natural culmination of a well lived life rather than a tragic interruption of human plans and desires. The women contribute their insights about the cycles of birth and death that govern family life, describing how caring for children and elderly relatives has taught them about the continuity that connects generations across the apparent discontinuity of individual mortality. Their perspectives reveal the wisdom that comes from intimate involvement with the fundamental processes that sustain human communities across time. As these deep conversations continue, the participants begin to reflect on the legacy they hope to leave through their own lives and work, rather than focusing on personal achievements or monuments. Their aspirations center on the positive influence they might have on their communities and the knowledge or skills they can pass on to future generations. The farmer expresses his hope that his children will continue to care for the land with the same devotion he has shown, ensuring that future generations will have fertile soil and productive crops. His vision of legacy emphasizes stewardship rather than ownership, reflecting the medieval understanding that individuals serve as temporary caretakers of resources that ultimately belong to the larger community and to God. The craftsmen speak of their hope that their skills and standards of quality will be maintained by their apprentices and successors, ensuring that their communities will continue to benefit from well made tools, buildings, and other necessary goods. Their understanding of legacy emphasizes the transmission of competence and integrity rather than mere material accumulation. The women express their aspirations for the children they are raising, hoping that the values and skills they teach will enable future generations to live with wisdom, compassion, and effectiveness. Their vision of legacy focuses on character formation and practical competence rather than social advancement or material success. These reflections on legacy and continuity create a sense of connection with past and future that transcends individual mortality, helping participants understand their lives as part of larger patterns of meaning that extend beyond the boundaries of personal existence. This perspective provides comfort and significance that enriches the present moment while placing individual concerns within broader contexts of purpose and value. The fire continues to burn steadily, its flames providing warmth and light that seem to symbolize the enduring qualities of human community that survive the passing of individuals. The tavern itself represents continuity, having served multiple generations of villagers who have gathered around similar fires for similar conversations about the eternal questions that concern thoughtful human beings in every age. As the evening deepens toward its conclusion, the conversations gradually become more contemplative and less verbal, with longer periods of comfortable silence that allow participants to absorb and reflect upon the wisdom that has been shared. These quiet intervals demonstrate the medieval understanding that silence can be as valuable as speech in facilitating genuine communication and spiritual insight. As the evening advances and the conversations naturally wind down, there is a gradual shift in the tavern's atmosphere from active engagement to peaceful reflection. The fire has been allowed to burn lower, creating softer light that encourages quieter voices and more contemplative moods. The transition occurs so naturally that no one feels hurried or displaced, but rather experiences the gentle progression toward rest that characterizes well ordered medieval life. The merchant, recognizing that his day will begin early with preparations for continued travel, is the first to express appreciation for the evening's hospitality and conversation. His departure is handled with the courtesy that medieval communities extend to travelers, with genuine invitations to return when his journeys bring him through the village again. The tavern keeper provides him with provisions for breakfast and information about the best routes to his next destination, services that reflect the mutual obligations that bind travelers and host communities together. As the merchant takes his leave, the remaining patrons settle into a quieter rhythm that acknowledges the approaching end of the evening's social gathering. The conversations continue, but they become more personal and reflective, with participants sharing final thoughts about the topics that have been explored and the insights that have emerged through their time together. The priest speaks quietly about the value of evenings like this one, describing how genuine conversation can become a form of prayer when people share their deepest thoughts and concerns with honesty and compassion. His observations help the other participants understand that their gathering has served purposes beyond mere entertainment or information exchange, creating opportunities for spiritual as well as social nourishment. The women begin to discuss their family's evening routines, describing how they will return home to check on sleeping children, bank fires for the night, and prepare for the next day's responsibilities. Their conversation reveals the complex web of domestic duties that continue even after the day's primary work is completed. But they speak of these obligations with satisfaction rather than burden, understanding them as expressions of care and commitment that give meaning to their lives. The farmers and craftsmen talk about their own evening and morning routines, sharing practical knowledge about the tasks that must be completed before sleep and the preparations that make the next day's work more efficient. Their discussion reveals the careful planning and attention to detail that characterizes successful medieval agriculture and craftsmanship, where proper preparation prevents problems and ensures consistent quality in both products and processes. The elderly man reflects on the pleasure he finds in quiet evening hours when the day's work is complete and he can sit peacefully with his thoughts and memories. His description of solitary contentment provides a counterpoint to the social pleasures that have dominated the evening's experience, reminding others that both community and solitude have their place in a well balanced life. The tavern keeper begins the subtle process of preparing for the establishment's closing, but he does so without rushing his remaining customers or making them feel unwelcome. His actions demonstrate the skill required to manage social transitions gracefully, allowing natural endings to occur without abrupt interruptions that might spoil the peaceful mood that has developed throughout the evening. As individual participants begin to take their leave, each departure is marked by expressions of genuine appreciation for the company and conversation that have been shared. These farewells reflect the medieval understanding that social gatherings serve important functions in maintaining community bonds, and that participants have mutual obligations to contribute to the success of such events. The process of leaving is gradual and unhurried, with people taking time to complete their final thoughts and ensure that important topics have been adequately explored. This approach to social endings reflects the medieval preference for natural rhythms over arbitrary schedules, allowing human interactions to reach their proper conclusions rather than being terminated by external constraints. Those who remain in the tavern as others depart find that the smaller group creates opportunities for even more intimate conversation. The reduced number of participants allows for deeper exploration of personal topics that might not be appropriate in larger gatherings, while the late hour and comfortable setting encourage the kind of philosophical reflection that often emerges when people are relaxed and free from immediate pressures. The firelight continues to provide gentle illumination that enhances the contemplative mood, while the sounds from outside the tavern have diminished to the occasional rustle of wind through trees and the distant call of a night bird. These subtle, natural sounds serve as reminders of the larger world beyond human habitation, connecting the tavern's intimate atmosphere with the vast rhythms of nature that govern all life. The remaining conversations tend toward personal reflection and individual concerns rather than the broader topics that dominated earlier discussions. Participants share thoughts about their own lives, their hopes for the future, and their efforts to live with wisdom and integrity. These more personal revelations are received with respectful attention and thoughtful responses that demonstrate the deep level of trust and mutual care that has developed among the group. The tavern keeper, as the evening's host, shares his own reflections on the satisfactions and challenges of his profession. He describes the pleasure he finds in facilitating gatherings like this one, where people can come together for meaningful conversation and mutual support. His observations reveal the important social role played by tavern keepers in medieval communities, where they serve not just as providers of food and drink, but as curators of social interaction and community bonding. As the fire burns lower and the light becomes softer, the conversations naturally become quieter and more intermittent, with longer periods of comfortable silence that allow participants to absorb the evening's experiences and prepare mentally for their return to private life. These quiet intervals demonstrate the medieval appreciation for contemplative silence as a valuable complement to active conversation. The remaining women discuss their families' sleeping arrangements and the routines they follow to ensure everyone's comfort and safety during the night hours. Their conversation reveals the careful attention to detail that characterizes medieval domestic management, where proper preparation prevents problems and ensures that family members can rest peacefully. The farmers and craftsmen share their thoughts about the next day's work, discussing projects that need attention and techniques they hope to try. Based on information shared during the evening's conversations, their planning reveals the continuous process of learning and improvement that characterizes skilled medieval workers who constantly seek to refine their methods and enhance their results. As the evening draws toward its natural conclusion, participants begin to express their gratitude for the company and conversation they have enjoyed. These expressions of appreciation reflect the medieval understanding that successful social gatherings require contributions from all participants and that everyone benefits when people come together with generosity and goodwill. The process of final departures is handled with the same courtesy and attention to relationship that has characterized the entire evening. People take time to offer assistance to neighbors who might need help with their journey home, to make arrangements for future meetings, and to ensure that any practical matters arising from their conversations are properly addressed. The tavern keeper ensures that everyone has proper lighting for their journey home, providing small oil lamps or candles that will safely guide people through the village's dark streets. His attention to these practical details reflects the comprehensive nature of medieval hospitality, which extends beyond mere food and drink to include all aspects of guest welfare. As the last patrons prepare to leave, there is a final moment of appreciation for the tavern itself as a gathering place that has made the evening's fellowship possible. This acknowledgement reflects the medieval understanding of how physical spaces contribute to social and spiritual experiences, and the importance of maintaining institutions that serve community needs. The transition from social gathering to individual rest occurs gradually and naturally, without the abrupt endings that characterize many modern social events. This approach allows participants to carry the evening's insights and satisfactions with them as they return to their private lives, where the wisdom gained through conversation can be integrated with personal reflection and prayer. The tavern now holds only a few remaining souls who seem reluctant to break the spell of this perfect evening, yet who also feel the natural pull toward the rest that their bodies and minds require after a full day of work and an evening of rich conversation. The fire has settled into glowing embers that provide gentle warmth without the bright flames that encouraged active engagement earlier in the evening. The tavern keeper moves quietly about his final duties, extinguishing some of the oil lamps while leaving enough light to ensure safety for his remaining guests. His movements are peaceful and unhurried, reflecting the understanding that this transition time requires respect for the contemplative mood that has settled over the gathering. Like a soft, comfortable blanket, the last few patrons sit in comfortable silence punctuated by occasional quiet observations about the evening's conversations or gentle expressions of gratitude for the fellowship they have shared. Their voices have become softer, more reflective, matching the subdued lighting and the approaching stillness of deep night that surrounds the village. Outside the tavern, the world has settled into the profound quiet that characterizes medieval nights when human activity ceases and the natural world reclaims its ancient rhythms. The absence of artificial lighting means that darkness falls completely, creating an environment that naturally encourages rest and contemplation. The only sounds are the gentle whisper of wind through trees and the occasional distant call of a night bird, sounds that enhance rather than disturb the peaceful atmosphere. The elderly man by the window speaks softly about the beauty of medieval nights, describing how the complete darkness allows stars to shine with brilliance unknown. In later ages, when artificial lighting would diminish their splendor, his words paint pictures of countless points of light scattered across vast dark skies, creating a sense of mystery and wonder that connects earthbound humans with the infinite cosmos that surrounds them. The remaining women share quiet thoughts about their families, sleeping peacefully in their beds, describing the satisfaction that comes from knowing that children are safe and comfortable, that homes are secure, and that another day has been successfully completed with its obligations fulfilled and its opportunities embraced. Their observations reveal the deep contentment that comes from lives well lived in service to others. The farmers and craftsmen reflect on the day's accomplishments and tomorrow's possibilities, but their planning has taken on a dreamlike quality that acknowledges the need for rest before new work begins. Their thoughts move slowly and peacefully, like gentle streams flowing toward the ocean of sleep that awaits all human consciousness at the end of each day's journey. The tavern keeper shares his appreciation for evenings like this one, describing how perfect gatherings create memories that sustain him through less successful days when conversation falters or fellowship fails to develop. His observations reveal the professional satisfaction that comes from facilitating meaningful human connections and providing a space where community bonds can be strengthened through shared experience. As the final participants prepare for departure, there is a quality of reluctance mixed with anticipation, a recognition that while the evening's pleasures must end, the rest that awaits offers its own satisfactions and rewards. This balanced acceptance of life's rhythms reflects the medieval understanding that human existence requires alternation between engagement and withdrawal, activity and rest, community and solitude. The process of final leave taking is conducted with special tenderness, as if participants recognize that they have shared something precious that deserves to be honored rather than simply concluded. Their farewells include expressions of gratitude not only for the evening's conversation, but also for the deeper fellowship that has developed through honest sharing and mutual support. The tavern keeper provides final services with the devotion that characterizes excellent hospitality, ensuring that everyone has safe passage home and that any remaining needs are addressed before people venture into the night. His attention to these final details reflects the comprehensive care that defines medieval hospitality at its best. As people step outside the tavern, they are enveloped by the cool, clean air of autumn night that carries the sense of earth, preparing for winter rest, of wood smoke from dying fires throughout the village, and of the infinite freshness that night brings to the natural world. These sensory experiences provide a gentle transition from the intimate warmth of the tavern to the vast peace of the nocturnal landscape. The village streets, completely dark except for the faint light that escapes through shuttered windows, require careful navigation, but also provide opportunities for final reflection as people make their way slowly toward their homes. The darkness creates a sense of mystery and wonder that enhances the contemplative mood established during the evening's conversations. For those who live nearby, the short journey home becomes a bridge between the social experience of the tavern and the private experience of family and personal rest. The transition is gradual and natural, allowing time for the evening's insights to settle into consciousness where they can be integrated with personal understanding and individual spiritual practice. The sounds of people saying final good nights and entering their homes gradually fade until the village settles into complete quiet, broken only by the natural sounds of night, creatures going about their own activities in the darkness beyond human habitation. This progression from human community to natural solitude creates a sense of harmony between civilization and the larger natural order that sustains all life. Inside homes, throughout the village, people perform their final routines before sleep with the satisfaction that comes from days well spent and evenings that have nourished both body and spirit. The simple acts of banking fires, checking on family members, and preparing beds for rest take on almost ritual significance as transitions from consciousness to the mysterious realm of sleep and dreams. The darkness within homes, complete except for the faint glow of carefully banked fires, creates an environment that naturally encourages the release of daily concerns and the gradual relaxation of mind and body that prepares for deep, restorative sleep. This darkness is not fearful but protective, wrapping families in security and peace. In bedrooms throughout the village, people settle into comfortable beds with straw mattresses and woolen blankets that provide warmth and softness earned through honest work and careful domestic management. The physical comfort of clean bedding and properly heated rooms enhances the mental and spiritual contentment established through meaningful social interaction and personal reflection. As consciousness gradually fades and sleep approaches, minds filled with the evening's conversations and insights naturally release their grip on active thought, allowing the deeper processes of rest and renewal to begin their essential work. The transition from waking awareness to sleep consciousness occurs as naturally as the earlier transition from daylight to darkness. Dreams, when they come, are likely to be colored by the evening's experiences, weaving together the practical concerns of daily life with the spiritual insights and social connections that have been strengthened through genuine fellowship and meaningful conversation. These dreams serve to integrate conscious learning with unconscious understanding, creating wholeness that prepares dreamers for new days of growth and service. The village itself rests under the protection of ancient rhythms that have sustained human communities for countless generations, rhythms that honor both the need for social connection and the equally important need for private rest and renewal. The balance between these complementary requirements creates conditions that support both individual flourishing and community welfare. Throughout the night hours, the peace that has settled over the village deepens and expands, creating an environment where rest can be complete and restorative. The absence of artificial disturbances allows natural processes of physical and mental renewal to proceed without interruption, ensuring that morning will bring refreshed energy and renewed capacity for the work and relationships that give meaning to human existence. In this perfect stillness, where individual rest merges with community peace and both participate in the larger tranquility of the natural world, sleep comes easily and deeply, bringing the gift of complete restoration that makes possible another day of productive work, meaningful relationships, and continued growth in wisdom and spiritual understanding. The medieval night embraces all within its gentle protection, offering the sacred gift of rest to bodies that have worked faithfully, minds that have engaged thoughtfully, and spirits that have been nourished through genuine human fellowship and authentic encounter with the deep truths that govern meaningful existence. And so, in this timeless peace that connects our imagined medieval evening with the eternal rhythms that sustain all human life across the centuries, consciousness releases its hold on active thought and allows itself to be carried gently into the restorative depths of peaceful, dreamless sleep.